Dr. Gottlieb, it's great to see you. This is great news for Eli Lilly. We heard some great news, as you know very well. It's a company you're on the board of, around Pfizer yesterday. I would, though, want to talk to you about going back to the issue of timelines, because you're watching the market move on this news. They're looking 12 months out about what the world looks like. And I think we would love to get your perspective on what you think that world really does look like. What kinds of levels of usage of these vaccines and even these other therapeutic drugs you're going to need to get to, quote unquote, herd immunity. I would just add on the Pfizer news, it looks to me like the amount that they're going to be able to produce next year would cover either 10% of the globe or about 30% of developed countries. And then you add on top of that, hopefully, some of the other vaccines. Can you snuff this thing out?
I think you can certainly control it. I think this is part of the technological counterattack against this virus that we always envisioned. And by next year, certainly by the fall, winter of next year, we're going to have a very broad toolbox, not just safe and effective vaccines, hopefully from multiple manufacturers. And I think what the Pfizer news just demonstrated is that you can develop a vaccine that is very protective against this virus based on the early results, if those results hold up. But we're also going to have these therapeutic antibodies. And remember, Lilly has a cocktail antibody that looks like the closest thing we have to a cure to this virus. I don't think it's unreasonable to say that based on the early data we've seen, albeit it is the early data, but it looked very effective. They're not going to have a lot of supply of that drug this year. They're going to have a lot going into next year. So the antibody that they approved, they got authorization for right now is their monotherapy. Next year, they're going to have a dual therapy antibody that hits the virus in two different targets. That looks exceedingly effective. And so that's going to be a very important addition to the therapeutic armamentarium. I was struck, actually, that they shipped 88,000 doses in the first day. That's quite an achievement.
Do you imagine that people will be wearing masks in August or September of 2021?
Look, I think it's possible. I think next year we're going to be a little bit more cautious than we've been certainly in 2018. Certainly heading into the spring and the summer, I think we're going to be coming off a very dense epidemic here in the winter. Heading into the spring, change of transmission will break off. The summer will be more quiescent. I think we're going to catch a break. And then the question is, what does it look like when the summer's ending and we're heading back to work, back to school in the fall of 2021? I think by then we might have a vaccine broadly available to mass inoculate the population. We're going to have these therapeutic antibodies broadly available, probably by Regeneron and Lilly, perhaps other entrants by then. Vir Biotechnology is developing one. Amgen is. There's small molecule drugs, pills in development that could also be effective against COVID. So we're going to have enough therapeutics and probably effective vaccines that as people head back to work and school in the fall, I think they're going to feel reasonably protected. Now, if you're a high-risk individual, will some people still feel more comfortable taking precautions, wearing masks? Will we still be more mindful of the spread of respiratory pathogens in the workplace? I think we will. But I think that a lot of the fear that I envisioned a much more cautious approach heading into the fall and winter of 2021, even with a vaccine. But if you start having vaccines that are potentially 90% effective or more, that really can snuff out transmission to a level where I think people are going to feel more confident living lives something closer to normal than what they might have done otherwise. 90% or greater effectiveness of a vaccine with the backstop of these therapeutic antibodies for people who are either at high risk or break through, they get sick even though they got vaccinated or they didn't get vaccinated. That's a pretty good therapeutic counterattack against this virus.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.